welcome back to Mint Mind. We're talking about coordinates today. And the first question I have for you straight off the bat is have a look at the coordinates I've got here, 4 quadrants. If you wanted to hit the battleship, and that is the top-down view of a battleship down there, what coordinates would get a direct hit? Have a look. If you can't work out relatively quickly which coordinates would get a direct hit, then you're in the right place, because I'm going to explain how to navigate around all 4 quadrants, this being the first one that we deal with a lot, and the other 3 as well. And by the end of this, you're going to know how to write your coordinates, how to remember the X and Y, and just generally how to navigate a SATs question, but also be able to tackle secondary school questions as well. So let's get into it. This is what we're used to dealing with when it comes to coordinates. This is where we start, and this is called the first quadrant. It is the most simple one, and that will become clearer as we go on when we're dealing with the other 3 quadrants. We've got some axes here. So we have a line up the sides, a vertical line, a vertical axis, and we have a horizontal axis. Understanding which one is which one we write first, is most important. So this axis here, the horizontal, is the X. I don't write it like that because it's not a multiply sign in maths, so we write an X like that. You're used to that if you've done the algebra. And this is the Y axis. There are lots of different ways to remember which is which. It's really important that you do remember which is which. Some of the best student a few years ago said to me, Y to the sky, and that's really stuck to me. So Y to the sky. I don't know why that stuck, but it just worked for me. Other people have said, actually, if you draw a Y, it makes what looks like almost like a vertical line there. So you remember that the Y is on the vertical. And probably the silliest, but the one that sticks with me, is the X-axis. One of the few words that begins with X is the word xylophone, and xylophones you lie flat. It's not perfect. It's not particularly slick, but we're going to remember what's going on anyway. So the X-axis is always horizontal, Y-axis is always vertical. If I was to pick a random point, I'm going to put a point there. The way we read coordinates is, you may have heard this phrase before, is along the corridor and up the stairs. I'm going to change my dot for a second. So along the corridor, so we work along the X-axis first. You can remember that because X comes before Y in the alphabet as well. So along the corridor, we've got 2. We're 2 along. And then we go, worst straight line ever, we then go 4 up. So the coordinates for this dot is 2, 4. Technically we're showing what is on the X-axis and what is on the Y-axis, followed by a comma. You put it in brackets and you put a comma between them. I'll pick another dot there. This time we're going all the way along, 8 along, so it's 8 on the X, and 3 up, 3 on the Y. You don't need to put the X and Y in here, I'm just repeating it so that we remember which is which. So 8 along, 3 up. They're both going to be positive numbers, because if you look at your X-axis, it's up to 10 positive numbers. You look at your Y-axis, it's up to 10 positive numbers. Always draw your points at the intersection of 2 lines as well. So if we go right up to the top there, we'd have 4 on the X, 10 on the Y. The coordinates are 4, 10. A couple of trickies. I'm going to draw that bit of a bigger circle. Don't get confused. You can still score a 0 here. So it's 0 on the X. If we look where it is here, it would be where the 0 was. So 0, 6. This coordinate here, the coordinate for that part would be 0. We don't move along the corridor at all, but we do go 6 up the stairs. And the inverse of that, I suppose, would be this one. So we actually go all the way along the corridor to 8, but we don't go up the stairs. So we don't go up the Y-axis at all. So it's 8 on the X, nothing on the Y. The coordinates are 8, 0. So that's the first quadrant. Remember, X like a xylophone, Y to the sky, or the letter Y looks a little bit like a vertical line, so use that. And now we need to start looking at our battleship and coordinates. Sometimes you're going to get this where you're not going to have every single number or every single step marked out on your axis. So this is still X. Everything along the horizontal is X. That is all the way along there. The Y-axis is all the way along there. So where we were was here. This is the first quadrant. We were 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. So quadrant there would be 4, 4. We've gone 4 along the corridor, 4 upstairs. If we go on to this quadrant, you'll notice that everything on the x-axis is a negative. So we've gone through this 0 point, and now everything is negative. That would be -1, that would be -2. If you get a question that doesn't have all of the numbers filled in on the grid lines, I would really recommend that you do fill them in if you've got a second. You're much less likely to make a silly error, drop a mark just by getting the wrong number. So fill them in if you can. And then up and down the stairs will be the same. So in this one, let's go for this, for example. So now we're going along the corridor, but we're going back along the corridor, -2, and then up to 5, 6, 7. So the coordinates for this dot are -2, 7. And again, you can fill in your gaps if the scale isn't completed for you, which as you go up school, it probably won't be. Another one on this one, let's go for here. We're going along the corridor first, even though we're going back, it's -8, 4. -8, comma, if my pen will work, comma, 4. Next quadrant down, we're going along the corridor in the normal way, but we're now going down the stairs. So we've still got negatives here, -1, -2, -3, -4, -6, and onwards. So let's pick here, for example, follow the x first, because x comes before y in the alphabet. We've got our 5, 6, 7, 8, -3. So 8, -3. I can fill in all my gaps. And then finally, if we're looking to nail this battleship down here, looking for a point over about, I want to see somewhere where I can actually pick my grid lines out still. Along the corridor, so look at the horizontal first, the x-axis is -3 at that area, and we go all the way down to -7. So -3, -7 would get a direct hit on the battleship. Another one that would, just on the tip there, would be -10, -7, -10, -7. You notice that between these 2 points, because they're actually in the same, the y value is exactly the same, because they're both in the same line. They're both in line with this y equals -7. They're both along that horizontal line. So the y-axis, the y number doesn't change at all. It's only the x. It's only how far we go along the corridor that changes. Let's put this to use in a Year 6 SATs question. So it says, on the grid, there are 3 points joined by 2 lines. 1, 2, 3. Lara plots another point at -1, 2. So we follow along -1 on the x-axis first. So -1 is there. I'm just hovering. 2 there. Along the corridor, backwards, and upstairs. Ideally join it with a ruler, but if you've got an amazingly surgeon steady hand like me, you'll be fine. It says, it does say use the ruler actually, I would have probably just about got away with that. Complete Lara's quadrilateral. Quadrilateral just meaning 4-sided shape on the grid. So we've done that now. We've got 1 side, 2 side, 3 and 4. And that would get you a mark, so well done us. And that's the only thing they're looking for there, is that you know how to read coordinates. And you do, which is great. It says Lara then moves the quadrilateral 4 squares to the right, and then draw it on the grid. So you go to each individual dot, each individual point, and move it 4 squares to the right, including on the axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And would I draw those jumps on the page? Yeah, I probably would. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Middle one here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then top left, 1, 2, 3, 4. See if I can use an actual ruler line, because that might look just a little bit neater. So draw that up to there, draw that up to there. Trying to get yourself too mixed up with your jumps, but there's our shape translated 4 squares to the right. It's not really testing your coordinates knowledge, it's testing really that you're going to do your jumps including the axis like that, 1, 2, and that you don't get yourself tripped up by counting jumps over the shape picture that you've already got. But a light pencil mark showing those jumps 1, 2, 3, 4 might just be helpful. You're not going to lose any marks for making marks on the paper either. So as long as that shape looks like that, you use a ruler, you'd be absolutely fine. And that is a relatively quick 2 marks, but you'd be surprised how many people have marked this particular question for many years now. How many people will drop this? Firstly, they might not know what a quadrilateral is. Think about quad being four, a four-sided shape, and certainly the translation as well. But it's just coordinates knowledge, the along the corridor and up the stairs. It'll get you 90% of the way there. That's the key learning for this. Along the corridor and up or down the stairs. Secondary school is always 4 quadrants. You're using all kinds of functions and different bendy lines when you get to secondary, but primary, we need to understand that still. Y to the sky, so your y-axis is the vertical, and X lays flat like a xylophone. That's a good starting point. And draw your marks where the actual grid lines cross. Don't want to see any of the kind of marks midway through points. That's not going to work. Or in the space. No, you want to be on the grid lines, so you can guarantee it's accurate there. Use a ruler if you need to on any of the crossing lines. Hopefully that's maybe made you a better Battleships player as well. Who knows? Does anyone even play that anymore? I doubt it. But either way, you understand how to write your coordinates on the first quadrant, hopefully all 4 as well, and you picked up a couple of easier marks. This is going to come up in a reasoning paper somewhere, one of the 2 reasoning papers. They're going to test you on your coordinates and use of the 4 quadrants. Hopefully that's been helpful, and I will see you again for the next one. Ciao.